Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson, Alan Seiler,
oh, holy schnoodle,
and Veronica Daschle.
Hi.
And do we have some news this week, Alan?
No, this was a quiet week.
Anything
Not
interesting
much happened. Well, okay, I've got 5 news stories. This is the latest news coming out of Starfleet. I'm sorry, the Federation Press Corps. So here we go. First of all, Simon Kinberg is confirmed to be in talks with Paramount to produce the next Trek film, as well as oversee the Trek film franchise from that point on. And in case you're not
missed that part.
familiar with him, some of his credits as writer, director, or producer include X-Men: The Last Stand, Dark Phoenix, the first 2 Deadpool movies, The Martian, which was, of course, nominated for Best Picture Oscar, 2 X-Men related series, The Gifted and Legion, Star Wars Rebels, one of the best Star Wars shows there is, the Paramount Plus Twilight Zone reboot, and this year's Apple TV series Sugar. According to reports, quote, Paramount sees Kinberg as a franchise shepherd the same way that Alex Kurtzman does for TV, even though J.J. Abrams remains as the overall producer.
See, so he was producer on all those things you mentioned?
Either director,
movies?
producer, or writer, yes.
Okay, because the first 2 you started out with made me concerned, but then all those others, I love The Gifted and so many of those other things you mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think everyone focuses on the X-Men movie that he wrote and directed that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been involved with a lot of things, and they're not saying he's going to write and direct all the Star Trek movies going forward. He'd be shepherding it, you know?
He's basically the showrunner for the film franchise.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's really interesting. I think it's an interesting pick.
Yeah, I think it's optimistic to consider there's a film franchise when we haven't had a film in 8 years.
Yeah.
So I'll be more optimistic when we get one off the ground. I want them to plan for the future. So that's good. I'm not being a downer about it. But I don't plan 5 movies and then not be good. Like, let's make a really good film and that makes people want more and then make more, you know?
Yep.
And did they say that the movies that they're looking at was it a I still say Abrams versus Kelvin universe movie? Was that the thought? Because there's talk about that. It's talked about like in modern times or something, right?
Right, and that's
what Charles wanted to talk about. So
okay, so that ties into that.
That's the film that we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
That Seth Grahame-Smith is writing, and I forget the name of the director off the top of my head. The guy,
I have it. It's right in here. I'll get it before you finish.
Okay, but yeah, that film it's previously been called a Star Trek Origin movie, and they had said it's set decades before the J.J. Abrams 2009 film. Which, if it's before the timeline split, it's just the Star Trek Origin, right?
Right.
But the newer details that there was a little blurb in this article that described it as being modern times and Earth's first contact with alien species, essentially, which the modern times hopefully is just poor phrasing. Hopefully it's just more modern times than regular Star Trek setting, right? If it's set, my hope is that it's set post first contact, because that's kind of an interesting time period when Earth was still like right off of World War III and the post-atomic horror, and then heading out into the galaxy for the first time. And dealing with, Andorians, or not Andorians, it's not yet, but Vulcans and whomever, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that would be more modern characters or closer to our time period. So I could see where that would be, a buzzword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The director, I just remembered, is Toby Haynes.
Okay.
And I know him best as being the only person in Doctor Who history to have directed 3 productions in a row. The season finale of Matt Smith's first season, Matt Smith's first Christmas episode, and then the opening 2-parter of season 6.
Okay.
So, and those are great episodes.
Yeah.
Like, they just look fantastic. So
right. Yeah. Let's grab a couple of comments real quick because it pertains to this.
Awesome.
Okay. Elaine Sweatman says, so before Enterprise?
Presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah, Enterprise
And
is
then-
set about 90 years after First Contact.
Right.
2151. First Contact was 2061 or 2063, and so presumably this would be like 2070. I don't know. I'm guessing, but I'm just going off what they said. Modern times. They could be telling the truth, and it could be 2025, and there's a new Star Trek universe now.
Yeah, totally.
Do whatever
Yeah.
they want.
And then Matt Sweatman says Star Trek Enterprise for the Kelvin verse.
Ugh.
Verse yet.
Well, I mean, who cares, really? But for the movie universe,
I care.
I mean, I'm imagining like Enterprise is very much like 24th century Star Trek, but less advanced, right? They have a starship and
Yeah.
gravity plating. I mean, they could do this more like, more like NASA type people strapping in and blasting off and going warp 2.
Yes.
I can tell already I'm going to be mad about the time it takes to get from planet to planet, because they're not going to take 2 months to fly to Vulcan, like.
Yeah, because even in Enterprise, the Warp 5 engine was a quantum leap, because they didn't even really have Warp 3 yet. Warp 5 they jumped, because when they would bump into some freighters, they were like, yeah, we do Warp 2.3.
Right.
And that was it.
But the thing is, it was Warp 5 in name only, because the show didn't operate any differently than any other Star Trek show.
Yeah, that's true.
They
But
flew
you're
to
right,
Kronos in like 4 days.
yeah, which really should have been how long it took them to. I agree. It took them to get.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about it, depending on how it's written, it could be good, because I'm sure that. I would give them credit. It was never going to make it, but Rick Berman and Branyan Braga originally envisioned the entire first season of Enterprise as a right stuff on Earth.
Right.
Mhm.
And they did not want to go to space until season's end. So you're right, Charles. There's a lot of room in there for stuff like artificial gravity, creating, what do you call them? Oh my goodness, the things where you don't get crushed by inertia.
Inertial dampeners.
Yeah, good night. I know, right? There's a lot of stuff. Another spiritual descendant of Colonel Green, who led the genocidal wars. There was one guy in Enterprise who basically was trying to lead a genocidal war against aliens. There's a lot of stuff there.
And stuff that you could turn into an action movie franchise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it really kind of seems like this is like the For All Mankind angle,
Mhm.
but set in the Star Trek universe, which I think is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
Anyway, one comment further, Matt Sweatman also says Keith didn't just say quantum leap in reference to Enterprise.
Oh boy.
I meant the scientific version of that, Matt, but yeah.
Right. All right. So 2 more these are quick news stories.
Yeah.
Dan and Kevin Hageman urge Prodigy fans who are clamoring for season 2 to be patient, and that the season is worth the wait.
Wow.
Can't do it, Dan.
Yeah.
Can't be patient. I'm going to be impatient until that happens.
Exactly. After that, Terry Matalas, the showrunner of Picard's seasons 2 and 3, has jumped ship to become executive producer and showrunner of the so far untitled Disney Plus series starring Paul Bettany as the Vision.
Mhm.
And obviously this brings up questions about Star Trek Legacy, that rumored show that looked like season 3 of Picard was setting up 100%. And about that, Alex Kurtzman said that he would love to greenlight Legacy, but the decision was totally out of his hands. But CBS CEO George Cheeks also was asked recently about Legacy, and he offered no real answer. His whole answer was just, quote, one of the most important franchises for Paramount Global and Paramount Plus specifically, which says nothing at all except that we like Star Trek.
That sounds like an AI response.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
I don't think it. I mean, I think people are blaming Kurtzman and blaming Paramount Plus for not moving forward. Paramount Plus is might get sold. They might collapse. Paramount Plus is we're lucky we're getting any Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not really in a financial situation like they were a few years ago to just pump out Star Trek shows. I'd love it if they did something with a legacy concept, but we'll see. I'm not surprised that somebody snatched up Terry Matalas, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a talented dude. He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to sit around for long and wait for Paramount to greenlight a show.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
I agree.
All right. So the 2 big news stories of the week. First, and this sounds like it's going to be out of order, but I promise it isn't. The first thing is we got this is the story that generated the most buzz this past week. We got our first official casting announcement for Starfleet Academy series. Holly Hunter has been cast, or as they said on the official Star Trek socials, casted, playing Captain and Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. And everybody knows Holly Hunter from Raising Arizona, from Broadcast News, and of course, probably her most important role playing the voice of Elastigirl in the Incredibles films.
Yes.
Her most recent thing that I know of was the 2 seasons with a show with Ted Danson called Mr. Mayor, where she's fantastic. She's so good in it.
Yeah.
And I think this is so exciting because as soon as they put up a picture of Holly Hunter, my immediate thought was, she's the one who's going to be running Starfleet Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she just has that presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has kind of the she uses her Southern accent a lot, and she has that sort of down home vibe. I could see her being a really a cool character. I like Holly Hunter. I first knew her from Always. I loved that movie growing up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But she does have that coolness that you're talking about, but she also has an edge. So if you're running an academy, you also have to be a disciplinarian, and she can turn it. So I think she's going to be really, really great for this show. And obviously it generated a lot of excitement about it. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
All right. One last news story, and this is mainly to do with Atlanta and Atlanta greater area, but for anybody who travels to Atlanta for our local mega convention, Dragon Con, which takes place at the beginning of September, they've started making their first big guest announcements for 2024. And on the list are Eugene Cordero and Tawny Newsome from Lower Decks.
Nice.
Yes.
I'm
cool.
so excited.
Space
I like the shirt.
Yeah.
I wonder if, since they talk so fast, the panel will only be about 20 minutes long.
Right. I think that Tawny has been Tawny and Sonequa both have been the best ambassadors for the Star Trek franchise in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
I just think she's amazing. And Eugene has been in so many cool things.
Yeah, he has.
Like the most recent second season of Loki.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So I'm excited to see both of them. I'm so hoping Jack and Noel are also in the works.
Yes.
Yeah. And Tawny is also a writer on Starfleet Academy.
Yes, she is.
Right.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Yep.
That's right.
All right. Let me get one last comment in this segment, and that is Matt Sweatman says Holly Hunter also had a recurring role in Succession.
Okay. Cool.
Which I still haven't gotten around to watching.
Same here.
Yeah.
All right. So, Keith, do we have a few quick This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, I do. This is just for Matt and Elaine. On the 22nd of May, 1989, a really memorable Star Trek episode premiered. It's actually, in my opinion, I think it's the first time that I saw Jean-Luc Picard laugh. And did y'all know when he was laughing? About. Yeah, it was when there was a whole bunch of sheep and cattle and hay.
Yeah.
And there was and I'm sorry for anybody who's of descent, because I'm not, and there was a drunken Irishman on board the ship. Mm-hmm. And that is Up the Long Ladder.
Terrible.
That episode.
Terrible episode. And I almost quoted it recently because the first 2 episodes of the new season of Doctor Who were kind of on the silly side. Mm-hmm. And I almost posted a quote of, sometimes, number one, you just have to bow to the absurd.
Yeah, it's memorable, not in a good way, but
it's memorable, all right.
Yeah, it's a memorable one. Charles pointed out, I can't believe I missed this, so I blame the website. The 23rd of May, 1994, right, Charles?
Yep.
Yeah.
Was the premiere of the series finale for TNG, All Good Things, which so many people have said is not just a good sci-fi or Star Trek finale, but it's a good TV finale.
I heard one person say that very recently.
And I agree.
Yeah.
For listeners, it was Chuck who said it right before we went live. So.
I swear I've said this so many times. Star Trek does more time travel than anybody outside of Doctor Who, but because so many of their premieres or their finales have time travel involved.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they kind of made this one work.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it so much.
Absolute good one. This one's from the 24th of May, 1966. I thought this is always interesting because when we have discussions about covering shows, we often discuss where do we get the order and the episode count. 24th of May, this is a big deal. 24th of May, 1966, first day of filming on the new series Star Trek. The first day of filming.
Wow.
It was a scene between Kirk and McCoy in sickbay. You probably know where I'm going. Where Kirk is basically peddling these weird blocks on the wall. McCoy sees an alert on the wall and doesn't tell Kirk. Do you know the episode I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Corbomite maneuver.
That's it. And then Spock shows him this really weird glowing cube on the screen.
Yep.
And that's because they were filming all this stuff out of order. That's the very first episode of Star Trek ever filmed. And I think that's just kind of amazing.
Yeah. The first production episode. There was two.
Yeah, production.
For that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's get that right. Great episode. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention, again, I always say this, don't really do deaths and births, but this is rather significant. 27th of May, 1969 is when Jeffrey Hunter passed away.
Oh,
and it's always one of those weird things. You can do this all the time, but I've always done this thing is, if he hadn't left Star Trek, would he still have been alive? But you can say that anyway. He could have been on Star Trek and gotten killed in a car wreck, so it's easy to say that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just amazing. And I remember reading something back then where they were like, well, that's that with this character. And I remember even 10 years ago, people would talk about Pike because I love Jeffrey Hunter as Pike. And we never thought we'd see Pike again, ever.
No.
And now we see Pike.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Anson Mount. Yeah. Yeah, so that's this week in Trek history.
Awesome. Well, let's take a quick break for a promo. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the latest Star Trek Discovery episode, Lagrange Point. So stay right there.
Good pronunciation.
Attention, people of Earth.
Turned on the TV late last night.
Cause I felt nerdy.
Saved the galaxy from a fright.
Cause I felt nerdy. On my TV late last night, cause I felt nerdy. Then my gravity and took flight, cause I felt nerdy.
Exterminate, seek, locate, destroy. I have to go. Having some problems up here. Good luck, stay safe, see you soon.
Spoilers.
Was that supposed to be a breen?
Yes.
Keith's breen was better. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't speak breen.
That's all right.
Speak in our language for the TV audience.
I did. I translated.
And that's spoilers for Star Trek Discovery, Lagrange Point. Which I thought was fun.
Yeah.
The breen are morons.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
I am
yeah.
so glad you said that, Charles. That's literally in my notes, but we'll get to that. They are demystifying the breen with every episode, but we'll get to that.
We may have to start out with it.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with that. I mean, they're stormtroopers. They're not even as bright necessarily as stormtroopers, but yeah, I feel like they're still missing some comedic opportunities with the breen.
Yeah, they're gonna go that route.
Yeah, they got breens flirting and setting up oil baths and.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, that was just the weirdest and most awkward scene.
Yeah.
It really was strange. First off, everyone knows what a Lagrange point is, right?
I do.
Yep.
Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting title. And I also think that for those who don't know, Lagrange point is blah, blah, blah. It's basically a point where an object can sit in a gravitational balance. Like there's Lagrange points between the Earth and the Sun, where the James Webb Space Telescope is, but a gravitational force is balanced such that an object can stay kind of sort of in one spot. And so I was thinking about that, and obviously it doesn't just mean the fact that they put that canister between two black holes. I think it's all about balancing in life, because there's a whole thing with Michael and Book. And guys, I'm reaching here because there's not a lot to say about this show, but it was all about balance. So I thought that was an interesting title. And I got to just say this, trust me, in real life, you're not going to be able to put something that small between two black holes for 800 years. and have it not drift between one of the two. So I thought that was very interesting.
Keith, what you just said about balance between lives and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I would never have thought of that. So
I was reaching.
I think you read really well, because I think that's an excellent observation that never even occurred to me. So good job.
Thank you.
I was pleased in this episode that they made use of Adira. Because I've been complaining all season that they don't do enough with Adira. And we had Stamets and Culber with a little parental scene. And I've been talking about how I wish there was more parental scenes. And they let Adira use their experience from being in the Earth Defense Force way back when they first came on the show. And then go on the adventure and, dress up. And I thought it was great. Finally Adira is getting something to do.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like Adira has been sort of a pointless character.
Yeah,
a lot, but this season in particular, and the one thing that you could really get out of them is that family dynamic, and we haven't even gotten that this season, and I don't think we got enough of it this week.
We got something though.
Still, we got something, and Adira was able to be a contributing factor in the away mission, and even leading up to that, even in the planning and everything. I was very pleased with that.
Absolutely. And Tilly also had some good stuff in this, and they weren't, because a lot of times they run into the problem that Adira is Tilly again.
Yes,
that they're doing the same thing, but they were both contributing in different ways that I thought was effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Tilly was first officer, and it didn't annoy me. So we've come a long way since season 3.
She was first officer, and she did annoy Commander Weird Ears.
I love that line though when he said, I don't need any of this touchy feely crap or whatever it was.
Right.
She's just like, he.
Yeah. Did you like it, Veronica?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was funny and a little goofy and fun. I questioned Michael pulling book aside in the middle of a way mission to talk about your feelings. She even said this is not really the place to do this, but
not even close.
By this time, they have to know that we talk about it, because the fandom, they're doing it deliberately. At this point.
They're trolling us.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, you have got to be effing kidding me.
Yeah.
I'm of the essence.
It's a ticking clock for the fate of the universe, and we're dressed up on like a top secret mission. Like, you know what? Come here.
Let's talk about us. Are you joking me? Oh my God. I hope that's recorded so that when Starfleet reviews the mission and they realize that the Breen got hold of that thing before the Discovery people did, because of that, they should all get fired. Except of course for Book, because he's not employed anyway. So
right.
But I will say, go ahead. That's right.
No, I was just gonna say I guess it's just like a weird idiosyncrasy of the show. It's kind of like with the original series, when at the end of the episode, 18 red shirts plus somebody's brother have died, and then they'll make a joke about Spock's ears and as they fly away.
Right.
That it's just that for that's Discovery's version of that. It's just this weird thing that Discovery does. Yeah.
I want to point out, and this relates to that same sequence that we're talking about here. Not only did Adira get pulled into an away mission and have some actual contributions to make, but so did Reese.
Yeah.
Very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, Reese has gotten some, maybe because the other bridge crew are gone.
Yeah,
but Reese has gotten a few good things this season. But
he has.
They even got the new folks, Asha, and I think there was a Jamison in there, named after Mae Jamison. That's the only reason I noticed. But they all got little lines and stuff to contribute as well. I thought that, I wish they would do that more consistently on the show.
Agreed. Okay, a couple of comments. Elaine Sweatman says, I loved the look of worry on Papa Stamets' face when Adira said they wanted to go on the mission.
Yeah, he's like, wait, what?
Yep.
I mean, to be fair, he doesn't know how silly the Breen are. He still thinks they're dangerous.
Right. Clearly, Adira's in no danger.
Right.
And Matt says, as far as Michael and Booker's ill-timed aside, at least the show is sticking to its formula as it winds down. That's true.
Yeah, I love that Burnham basically like, we know there's no time for this, and yet.
And yet.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. you do stuff like that before you go on the mission, as you're getting dressed or something weird like that, not in the middle of the mission.
Yeah,
'Cause
or
again,
if you're having to wait for a moment for something to happen.
Yeah.
Or if you
Yeah.
got a panel open and you're fiddling with it and talking while you fiddle, something,
Mhm.
Right.
You're
Right.
in the turbo shaft is going to take 20 seconds to get there. We've got a second to wait. And you know what? By the way, I still love you. Everyone watching the show knows, but now you know too. You know,
right.
I think the dialogue should go just like that, verbatim.
exactly.
Everyone watching the show knows.
I thought it was kind of cool that their helmets, I guess, know when it's a private communication.
Dude.
Yeah, I was worried
Dude,
about
I
that.
wrote that down. I don't get
Uh-uh.
it. I don't get that one. That was rough.
Yes,
'Cause
it
they-
was.
They were going
they
from
would-
one to the other.
In mid sentence almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that drive me crazy.
And then
I
back
guess
to
it's
it-
like mentally controlled. That
It has to be.
I mean, they've got they double tap their transporters and go wherever they want. So they've got to have that kind of technology.
Yeah,
Yep.
In
something
Starfleet.
mentally connected.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just yeah. I wrote that the show felt like it's like a rehash of all kinds of plots from Star Trek. And kind of
Okay.
mashed together. Like you said, it's still fun. It's not that I don't enjoy it, but there's so many things. Ensign Road. I won't spoil this for Lane, but there's a whole thing about how many times have you seen somebody come up? This is so weird. Like Charles, you talk about that dreadnought. It's like this huge honking thing, right?
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, but they can't see in the back. We'll pull the shuttle into the back, and then like this super ship, it's got a weakness in the shields right here. Like seriously, but that's science fiction trope, so you can get to where you need to get.
I mean, that thing's big enough you can fly Discovery into the shuttle bay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So here's a question. What episode number are we on?
5-9, episode 9.
How many episodes are there this season?
10.
Does this episode feel like it's the next to the last episode?
It
Heck
does not.
no.
No, it
It does
doesn't.
not. I'm wondering about
Maybe
that
it's
too.
a 2-hour single episode
Well,
instead of a 2-episode.
Well, it is going to be like an hour and a half next week, I think, because they added that tag.
Because
Right.
But still,
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I could, in the sense of they've made it there, and the bad guy and Burnham both jumped through the portal.
yeah.
It feels like we're there. I feel like I haven't seen Saru all season, and he just came back. We only saw him doing diplomatic things once.
Right.
And then this week he just showed up basically to bring flowers and volunteer to go on the mission, just so he can get there in time for the finale.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
basically. And they've already done the call for backup because Discovery is facing all these breen. So that's going to work. I'm crossing fingers. That's going to work Detmer and Owo and the Enterprise into the factor. So we're getting all the pieces lined up for the finale.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. Some people online said. They said that Enterprise is so slow they haven't gotten home yet, so they're going to turn around and go help them because they're still on the way back home.
I expect the Enterprise to show up with detached nacelles and like neon all over it and everything. Like, it'll be a upgraded Enterprise.
Matt says these constantly beaming into everywhere are destroying the traditional pacing of the show.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get turbo lift scenes anymore.
No. You
Yeah,
don't
that's
even
right.
get like walking the corridor scenes anymore.
Yeah.
Well, they
once
did
in a
this week
while.
until it was time to beam out of the corridor.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, I saw something really odd, and it's funny. Alan infected me because I took notes, and I realized after 30 minutes that I kept calling Lock Moll and Moll Lock, and that's horrible because, like, oh my God, they're not making an impression on me, and I got confused as which was which. But I ran this 3 times. When they said the Discovery was destroyed, Moll looked upset. What was that about? Did she feel guilty? But just book. Okay, I wondered about that. I ran it.
I've been
What
given
for?
nothing this season to indicate that she would care
No.
one whit
Yeah.
about
That
it.
it looked like she was upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran it 3
That was
times.
the only
and
reason I could have thought.
I think they're trying
Okay,
to keep her
thank you.
sympathetic enough to redeem her next week.
Okay.
Even instead
could
of
not.
just like ordering that Book and Burnham be killed, it was like, we'll drop them off somewhere and then destroy the universe. You know?
I don't think she
Oh,
wants
man.
to destroy the
She
universe.
does.
I
She
think
just wants to bring
Locke,
Locke back to
Yeah.
life.
and then
Yeah.
they can rule the Breen Empire.
Well, I don't think she even
Right.
cares about that. I think she just wants to bring Locke back to life.
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
but then he has to do that because they're stuck.
I mean,
this
really,
point.
you could tell he could order all the breen to go that way, and then they fly the other way at this point.
True.
Or with the
True.
way the breen were in this episode, it seemed like they're all lined up. You just knock the first one over, and they'll domino down, and you can escape.
Oh, that's funny.
I did like Rayner this week.
Yeah.
I like how they play with the fact that all season he's not sat down in the chair. Like he just paces the bridge, like he doesn't want to commit to it, you know. And then they've mentioned it this week, and then finally he did. He sat down.
Right.
Sort of embraced his role as the XO of Discovery.
Yeah, it's funny because I had never noticed that until they actually mentioned it. It never crossed my mind that he hadn't sat in the chair yet. So I thought that was pretty good. Really?
Yeah. Well, Veronica noticed.
I never said anything, but I remember noticing.
Yeah. On the Ready Room, Jonathan Frakes mentioned that Rayner came to him before he did it and asked for advice about, how he should. And it was Frakes that suggested the little half Picard maneuver before he sat down. And then the Rayner actor came up with the tapping on the side of the chair. But I thought it was a good use of the captain's chair, of the sort of symbology that goes along with it. That, that sort of the culmination of his arc was finally sitting down in that chair. I thought that was very effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did too. I thought it was really great. The symbolism of it was spot on, I thought.
Yeah. So I guess the scientist 800 years ago built this trash can thing around a portal. Right, and left it at the Lagrange point. Did they make the interdimensional portal as well?
Unknown.
Or did they find, or is the interdimensional, like, did they find that portal and that's what led them there to begin with?
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Okay.
I was thinking about the fact that where he left it would have killed, or he or she left it would have killed anybody, really. So it was interesting. Yeah, that's true because
well, they mentioned that they made a point of mentioning that those black holes are primordial black holes. So they were there, presumably in preserver time, or not preserver, the progenitor time frame.
Yeah.
So I would guess maybe the progenitors had left the portal, and then these guys sort of built a door around it with a key. That's my take.
Yeah, primordial black holes are assumed to have been created at the beginning of the universe. So 13 billion years they've been sitting there waiting for that dude or whoever to show up and drop it there.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think about the progenitor tech possibly doing with the portal. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
That unless that's contradicted, that's what I'm going with.
I mean, it makes sense as much as anything else does. Any guess really at this point can work because we don't really know anything,
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Yeah. By this point in the season, I was hoping that we'd get more of a just like they had a little bit of philosophy around the fact that the progenitor tech exists, but it's been more like, what would we do if we had that tech, and can it create life and that sort of thing. I would like to have seen more of the fact that we'll have hard evidence that, I mean, all these species have a common ancestry, that we're all related if you go back far enough. That, I mean, like, well, what does that mean for interspecies diplomacy and so forth,
Right.
So maybe we'll get some of that next week. I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of philosophizing next week, though.
I don't think so. I think next week
they have time.
It'll be a lot of
action
next week.
Episode. Yeah.
Okay,
Matt Sweatman reports in and says, shouldn't the no, wait, I missed one. Hold on. He just sent another one as I was trying to get the other one. On the Ready Room, they listed every character that had sat in the captain's seat on Discovery.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I still have to watch that show. I'm way behind.
Discovery.
Yeah, no. And then he also says, shouldn't the location of any black hole be charted? Why was the Discovery surprised to come out near one?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you got me. I mean, it could be because they didn't really have time to fine tune their jump, and it was just like, I need a little more time with the jump, and she's like, jump now, and they did.
Yeah, basically
about crashing into a black hole.
Yeah, but is it outside of Federation known space then?
I don't even know what Federation known space is in the 32nd century.
True.
Yeah.
Seems like it would be larger.
Yeah, Stamets did say they were gonna basically he made some kind of funny comment about they're gonna kind of get close, but maybe not as close as they need. He needed another hour and a half, I think, to calculate it better. Right. So she just said, jump now.
Yeah, but like talking about the fact that the black hole would have been charted, like they literally went to the edge of the universe. And they didn't find these two black holes somewhere in that universe when they went to the edge of the universe.
What edge of the universe they go
At
to?
the end of the last season.
That was the galaxy.
Okay, the edge of the galaxy. Whatever.
This ain't Doctor Who. We ain't going to the edge of the universe.
They went to the edge of the galaxy. How do they not know about these black holes?
Well, depending on where the black holes are, yeah, they should know they're there because they also said they had an accretion disk, which means they're eating. And so they would have been able to see, they would have been able to detect them from a long time ago. But this is one time I had to leave the science alone because it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
This is one time you had to do that?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, this was a rough one.
No, I thought it was a fun episode. It's like a little Mission Impossible-y. They even did like a split screen with 3 of the characters at one point. Just for one line. But
just for one line.
They had some fun with it. They're punching bad guys and some good character moments. I enjoyed this one. I thought it was fun. I don't think it. Yeah, I think the breen didn't come out nearly as menacing as they started off.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they're ruining the breen left. They're ruining them left and right. And they have literally been one of my favorite races in all of Star Trek history.
Yeah.
And it's just every week I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. The oil bath thing is beneath the breen. I'm sorry.
It was almost the Ewoks beating up the breen. Hitting them with clubs. Oh,
yeah. Okay, this sounds like one of these episodes where we're dumping on the show, and I don't mean to, but also
no, it's not. I liked it.
There was one time too many where Michael ad-libbed what to say to the breen, and that's not the race that I was first introduced to. You know, it's basically, and you've seen so many things where they say at the end of the day, no matter what race is, a common soldier is a common soldier. And if you sound like you know what you're talking about, they will back down. It's just, again, not what I think of the breen. I mean, they carry those cool glowy sticks and stuff, but it was just horrible. You know, like, and then that whole thing about, didn't you fill out the request form? Like, how do you know they have request forms? I guess because everybody has request forms.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a military, so I guess that's the assumption.
Yeah.
And what's this festival that they were talking about? It must be like a big dance, like a rave, because they've all got their glow sticks just ready to, cut loose.
Right.
All right.
Lost my camera, I know.
Okay. Matt Sweatman asks, Keith, maybe you can answer this, but wouldn't black holes be detectable from farther out than charted space? At least any in our galaxy should be known.
Yes, because they said they have an accretion disk. When they have an accretion disk, means there's material around the black hole. And material around the black hole falls into the black hole and it glows super bright. And if there's 2 of them, they basically would have seen what we used to call quasars. So yeah, they would have been able to know they're there. So they should have known they were there.
Yeah, I think they just didn't have time to fully computate their coordinates. It was like, I need a little more time. And she's like, press the go button. And they press the go button and black hole time.
Let's fly.
Yeah.
And then Elaine says, I did like the action at the end, even though it was a little far-fetched for the Discovery to fly into the shuttle bay.
Mm-hmm.
And
I did like that they sort of tucked the detachable nacelles up as they were, because they don't usually move. Usually they're just sort of where they're at, but they're sort of like tucked in when they crashed into the thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And anybody else watching, if you want to let us know what you thought about this episode, if you've got observations or whatever, please just drop it into the comments section down below wherever you're watching.
Yeah.
Hey, Charles,
we basically run out of stuff to talk about.
Hey, Charles, you mentioned Saru. What did you think about the little bit that Saru got to do? Did you like the little tender moment about them expressing their love for each other and so forth?
I mean, sure, but we've seen that.
Yeah.
I really would like to have seen more of Saru dealing with the diplomacy in the galaxy.
Yeah,
we got that one little scene of him doing that earlier in the season, and then we haven't seen him since, basically. And then this week he's coming back from a diplomatic mission. Maybe we'll see him negotiating next week, and we'll be able to see him more as a negotiator. But I mean, I always like the scenes with him and Tarina, but I mean that's been done. I'd like to see more.
That's what I was going to say.
Right.
I mean, for Saru and Tarina, this is the same scene that we've gotten a number of times this season. So
yeah. No, I agree. I was glad to see Rillick back, the president.
Yeah, definitely.
He didn't get a whole lot to do, but I mean, it was all just set up for Saru to be in the finale.
Pretty much.
Right. Right.
I did like the line when they're flying. There's a lot of good little lines in this one. When like Adira was like, we can't do this and this and this, and so like, why not? And they start to explain, and Burnham's like, science later, problem now. And then Adira used that line just like a few minutes later. I thought that was good. We don't need the technobabble explanation right now. Like, we're just do what you got to do.
Right. All right.
I
Well, I've
also
run out
liked
of
how they
steam.
have like a portable pattern buffer now.
Yeah.
Like it's a hardcore thing that they do. They
Yeah.
brought over from Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of originates with Scotty, putting himself on TNG and the pattern buffer. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense if you have that level of transporter technology. You could just, I mean, I wonder how much stuff you could put in there. Could you put like a crew of people into, like, an army into a pattern buffer and
Oh, geez.
fly it somewhere?
Yeah, true. All right. Elaine is wondering where Tig Notaro was this episode. She missed Reno. Well, she only does little bits each season and only appears in maybe 4 episodes per season. So, it's not unlikely that she wasn't in this one. And hopefully, because she will be significantly in next week's episode, since she's only been in 3 times, I think, this season. So we're definitely due for some Reno action next week.
Yeah, I think 3 out of 9 episodes is a greater percentage than we've gotten in previous years, though.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it.
You don't think so?
Just didn't have that much to do in any of them, really.
Yeah.
And then Matt says, does every show do this HUD camera angle a la Tony Stark Iron Man? No, I don't know what that is. What is that?
the heads up display.
Where you
that.
can see his face and all the little bloopy beeps around it.
Oh, heads up
All
display.
spacesuits are Iron Man now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they all appear magically and disappear magically, and they all have that same Tony Stark view when they're inside the helmet.
Thanks, Marvel.
I know.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking this, this being Star Trek, and as you guys point out, we've got 1 episode to go. There's so much philosophical discussion and metaphysical discussion you could have about the progenitors. Again, I won't spoil this for Elaine, but the TNG show that this is based on, again, no spoilers. At the end, there was a philosophical discussion between Picard and someone else, and I'll just leave it there. And it was basically like, what about the fact that we may be, basically related? So there's conversations. And then, like Veronica, what you're saying about the pattern buffer, the progenitors tech perhaps being able to revitalize the dead, and the fact that you can take a dead body and store it into a buffer. It's kind of like the magic transporter sometimes. There's huge discussions about what you could do in the future. That practically means you could be immortal in some shape or fashion. There's huge discussions there.
Yeah, there was a second season Next Gen episode where they cured death. Well, they got your DNA, they run you through the transporter and put you right back to where you were at that point. Everyone should have hair on file, and then every year or two, you cycle them through the transporter, and they're 2 years younger.
Right.
You live forever.
Right. As a matter of fact, completely connoisseur unrelated, but one of the things I wanted to talk about for our show otherwise was the whole kind of medical ethics of the future. Because if you could do that, would you do it? Should you do that? Because it could be practically possible never to die. Picard's done it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Keith. They have so many elements that they have to balance in these episodes. They have action sequences. They have all the setup. They have to have a resolution at the end. They don't have time to delve into a lot of that kind of stuff. That's why there's podcasts.
We got all the time in the world. Nothing better to do. But I think this season I think they were doing a pretty good job of having introspection and dealing with some of the themes of things that were going on earlier in the season, when they would have, like Burnham talking to Culber, and then Culber talking to Tilly, and sort of dealing with things that are happening and sort of pondering the mysteries and what it all means. But that, as the season goes on and it gets more the action and pew pew going on, and that sort of gets phased out. I guess it's necessary because they feel like they got to pick up the pace as they build up, because all the finales have to be the end of the world.
But I feel like we got more of that stuff and more significant content along those lines last season when we were dealing with the 10C.
Yeah. Well, last year there was more episodes too.
Yeah, I know, but
yeah,
I don't know.
13 episodes last season?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do feel like the pace has been brisker this year. There was still a little bit of a dip in the middle, but I felt like the back half of last season, I felt drug more than anything this season has.
All right, Matt has a comment, and it is they have to resolve this breen conflict, have their philosophical debate, decide to haha, and or destroy the progenitor tech and have all of our character goodbyes in just one more episode. Yeah, but we know it's going to be a longer episode because they basically had the episode completely finished. So we assume it'll be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. And then they called the cast back to film stuff to wrap up the series. So there is at least some bit of material tacked onto the end of what we would have gotten anyway.
Yeah. And it's Discovery, so they can resolve the breen conflict and have a philosophical debate
at the same
time.
True. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If the Primarch does a confessional, I give up. If the Primarch stops and say, "You don't know how tough it is to be a leader," I give up.
Well, Keith, there's no need to give up because it'll be the last thing that ever happens on Discovery.
Yeah, an oil bath. Yeah.
I think Matt asked a very interesting question because, Matt, you may remember in the very first season of Discovery, one of the things that people said, and this is such a fraught thing, was Discovery didn't feel like, quote unquote, Star Trek. And then at the very end, I think it was either that season or the season when it actually went to the future. You might remember the last episode, Michael Burnham gave that speech. It was kind of like, because we're the Federation and we're the so-and-so. And people said it sounded like they're like, oh, we gotta remember what Star Trek, quote unquote, is. And they kind of slapped it on at the end. So I don't know if they're gonna do that. But again, this is Jonathan Frakes, so he knows what Star Trek represents. I don't know if they're gonna try to go out like that or not. Again, like you said, it depends on what that final filming that he brought back was supposed to be all about.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have written any of it.
Oh, that's true. That's right. He would just direct it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, I disagree with those people who say Discovery does. People say that about every Star Trek show.
Yeah. I agree.
From one reason or another. But no, right. I mean, Discovery, I think, has always done a good job of not always, but in the last several seasons anyway, of sort of reaching for the Star Trek philosophy along the way. And I'm sure we'll get some of that next week. Hopefully it'll be, I don't care about the progenitors' ability to create life. To me, the more interesting part of it is that everyone, like, there's a connection between all these different races,
right.
if you go back far enough. I wish they were playing up more of that angle, especially with Saru, doing diplomacy amongst these different species, if we'd been able to see that, because the infighting could have been a big oh my gosh moment for these different races of like, oh, maybe we're not so different after all.
Well, but we still may get that as
That's
the
true.
resolution to the breen situation.
True. Yeah.
The jelly monsters and the humans.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that'd be good. I mean, I would like that. And yeah, I mean, I felt like the Breen were a little too comical this way. But I mean, there's been plenty of times when the Borg were too silly. The Borg were inept and easy to knock over, but they still are able to come back and be scary again later. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind funny Breen because I think they have that potential to be funny. But I feel like you can still make them menacing if they try to.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, they may, because we've got that other faction of them showing up next week, so they may be the scary ones.
True.
Yeah. Tahal coming in. Yeah. You expect the Breen coming in saying, "What is this non-jelly person doing in charge of?"
Yeah, I think that week is more than anything when she's, the Primarch or the Scion's wife. Everyone follow me, and they're like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Jeez.
Right.
None of them are going to try to challenge her for power.
Thank you.
I would think so as well.
Okay, so question regarding the progenitors seeding the universe. Everyone's supposed to be related, but what about like non-humanoids like the Breen, who are jelly, and the changelings, who are jelly, basically?
Yeah,
like,
but I mean,
are they like that? Where do they come in?
Well, I think the changelings were originally solids, and they have sort of evolved into being changelings. And the Breen are basically like half solid and half not. I have more questions about things like the Tholians. Presumably, they didn't seed all intelligent life in the galaxy, but they did seed I don't know how many planets with, I guess, programmable evolution DNA.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt says all the jelly races have their own jelly
See,
progenitors.
that's what I was gonna say. There should be some other progenitors out there.
No, I mean you're asking that, but like the progenitor we saw in Next Gen was Salome gens. So
Yes.
if any race is descended from the progenitors, it's going to be the changelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm seeing the jelly progenitors crossing the streams as those aliens with the tentacles from the Simpsons. Well, there was one episode that was a riff on the Twilight Zone episode. So
Right.
to serve man. So that's a good point. But yeah, I think, and I think Veronica, I think what they were trying to say is anything that's carbon based and basically humanoid and bipedal was likely came from the progenitors, because you can have the same molecular structure and look like something else. I guess that's what they're trying to say. And Charles made a very good point, the whole programmable DNA thing. Yeah, the less you look at that, the better as well. Yeah. So, but
that's
again,
been the case in Star Trek forever. I remember
absolutely.
In that episode with the Voth, when they're looking at the dinosaur, and Janeway's like, let's see it with 5 billion years of evolution, without naming any environmental conditions. And it was like,
right.
And it's a Voth. Right. Like, oh, that's the way, the way that evolution will go.
Yeah, and it's not like they haven't done something like that though. With the other races, Return to Tomorrow in the original series with Sargon, he said his people had seeded the galaxy, which is why so many there were so many humanoids in the galaxy. So we don't know if they're part of. Well, obviously they're not the progenitors. Yeah. And then there's the race of people who put the Native American tribe on the planet,
plucking up people and putting them on different planets.
Yeah, right. So I guess there's a lot of that going on.
It sounds like there's a lot of people spreading their seed around.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first ones were busy spreading their seed to try and get their seed out there as much as possible.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just hope we get enough talking next week, and it's not just the pew pew. I expect we will, especially once Burnham and Moll get over, because it'll be just them dealing with whatever is in progenitor land. So presumably we'll have some time for conversation with them while everyone else is blowing up.
All right. One last question from Matt. He wants to know, this may have been answered, and he's forgotten, but were the progenitors related to the original series preservers?
We don't know, because we don't know who the preservers were, but the preservers were much more recent than the progenitors. Were like billions of years ago, and the preservers were more like thousands of years ago.
Yeah, the same with Sargon's people, with the people with the people who ended up in their bodies in the evil Spock. They were, well, I don't know if they're related, because Spock said that might explain certain aspects of Vulcan evolution. But again, I don't think it's as far back as the progenitors. I don't know. And even Sargon said in an episode he didn't know, because they've been out in the galaxy for so long. So it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. So I know the progenitors have said that they were like the first race,
right? And
they looked around and there was no one else, and that's why they seeded the galaxy, so they would be remembered. Went a little overboard, maybe, because they're all over the place now. But no, I mean, I think it's a cool concept. I think it's I guess it's just the nature of shows now. It's the action's got to build up as we get closer to the finale.
Well, a good discussion in Star Trek does have to do with these ancient races, because again, so much of this is the original series. There's the preservers, there's the ones we talked about, there's the old ones from What Little Girl's Made Of, the people who created the planet with the androids. There's whatever race there was that built the Guardian of Forever. There's all kinds. Yeah. There's the Q. There's all these races going around, and there's some interesting discussion to be had about that. So on the surface, it's a good concept.
Yeah, even the Vulcan. I mean, even the Bajorans were like had space flight before humans were walking upright.
Right.
So, I mean, there are a lot of races that are older than we are.
Yeah. That's probably what would happen if we had truly galactic colonization. It's probably going to be something like that.
And like the Promelians that went extinct before we even came, millions of years before we even came along.
Yeah.
Or thousands of years before we came along.
And Matt mentions the Iconians.
Yeah, they're also old and dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, some things to look forward to next week. Next week's our last Discovery episode to watch.
Ever.
I know.
That's wow. Crazy. Yeah. What are y'all looking for next week? Was there like one thing you want to see, like one resolution, one whatever?
As far as the finale,
mine is.
Yeah.
Yours. You want Owen and Detmer back?
Yep.
I want Book and Michael to finally get the crap back together and be done with it. I like them as a couple, actually, and I get really sick of will they, won't they? They looks like they're moving that way. So heck, if they end the whole series on a kiss between them, I'm fine. I like Book.
No.
Don't do that.
I
please.
expect to see Saru's wedding.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
And they teed that up this week,
Yep.
which we kind of expected. I don't know. I would like for Michael to stay on Discovery and them head off for new adventures. You know, I'd like for not instead of the ship. I expect the ship won't blow up because they didn't know it was the finale when they first filmed the episode. But,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, I'd like for let's fly, and then they fly, and you know,
and that's that.
off into something new.
Pretty much.
It'd be interesting.
Maybe Holly Hunter will show up
Yeah.
because they did just announce it right before the finale.
Yeah.
They like to get ahead of things.
That's right. Okay, one last one from Matt. I want the American Graffiti ending where we learn what happens to everybody after the show. I do love those kind of endings.
Maybe that's what's going to happen because they had to go back and film it. So they all went ahead and filmed the, hey, this is what's happened since then.
Saru moved to Vermont, opened a bagel stand.
Oh, wow. What a callback. I remember those.
That would be awesome. All right. Alan, where can people find more of you?
You can go to cosmiccreative.com, KOZMIC creative.com, where I just announced a new event coming up later this year in September, which is the Georgia Indie Book Fair. If you are an author or a vendor and you would like to be involved, go visit our website. All the links are right there on my webpage, and you can sign up. We'd love to have you.
And how about you, Keith?
You can find me on X and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com.
And
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
that's right. And our next episode up, we should have it should be the next one. We should, another interview with Glenn Gretland, the head of 7A Records, concerning the new Davy Jones. His sort of lost album from the 80s is now being reissued for the first time and properly issued for the first time. It was issued on cassette tape and sold at concerts exclusively in the 80s, and now it's getting a proper release. And so we're gonna have Glenn on, as well as the guy who does the liner notes for their releases. It's gonna be a good talk.
Yeah,
that's amazing. You guys get some really good guests.
Trying.
Yeah.
All right, Veronica, you have a closing for us this week.
Okay. You know me. You couldn't just sit around relaxing, could I?
Is that from the episode?
God.
Yes, Book said that.
Yes,
shocked.
it is.
I'm like, what show is that from? Good job, Veronica.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday for the very last new episode of Discovery.
This is it.
All right, everybody take care. See you next week.
Thanks all.